Acumen, like defending.
I think it's like
Are we live? Of course we're live. People deluded, I'm back again. By now you already know who I'm with. We've done this enough times. It's me and Mo. Mo and DG is quite a good formidable partnership. If only our midfield was as sorted as that. How you doing, broski? Happy New Year.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Just looking forward to getting back to winning ways, hopefully tomorrow. You know, when after a defeat like the one we just had in the FA Cup, I'm always looking forward to the next game, itching to get there. So tough couple of fixtures, the last two fixtures for Arsenal fans, but hasn't dampened the belief. I don't know about you.
Yeah, just like you said, man, it hasn't dampened the belief. We've taken a bit of bumps and bruises on the road. You know, I'm happy you said that because I don't think I've asked you about how you feel the City game went or the Forest game. Now, we lost two different comps, but we lost. City, all right, it is what it is. Nottingham Forest, it was atrocious. We might as well kick off there. Just before the Nottingham Forest game, you know, what was your feelings with the City game? Because fundamentally we lost, but there was some positives, I guess.
You know, I think my feelings changed as I got further away from the game. I was very caught up in the emotion of the game. And for me, the focus was all about referees, you know, in the aftermath of the game. And it was sort of rightly so. But then as we got further away from the game, I started to look more at what was in our control and think less about the referees. Because people that have been listening to me for many years know that I very, very rarely talk about referees. I've got to be flipping awful for me to talk about them. Because the way I see it, if you've got enough quality, you minimize their importance and their impact on the game. When you're lacking quality, they have much more say over the result because your quality is less say. So I always try and put the onus on Arsenal or any football team and their quality. But I do think the officiating in that Man City game was so poor. It really did frustrate me. But then, as I say, as I got further away from the game and I kind of digested how awful they were, and that still remains, I felt like Granit Xhaka, Gabriel, Martinelli's chance, you know, we really did let ourselves down. There was like 6 minutes of self-destruction between, you know, I think it was giving away the penalty and then Martinelli missing and then Gabriel getting the second yellow. And I felt like, boy, that game was really there for us to get something out of. And we have to learn some lessons. You obviously can't learn lessons about Stuart Atwell. You've got no control over that. But you can learn lessons about yourself. So, yeah, I mean, we can probably get into those things, you know, whether we feel like Xhaka was to blame for the penalty.
Yeah, don't hold back, man. Do you feel he's to blame for the penalty? We've got to talk about these moments, Mo. Do you blame him for the penalty?
I do. I think he's a very, very clumsy tackler. I've always said with Granit Xhaka that there are good elements to his game and he could go and play in a league or like we saw in the Euros. He played brilliantly. And if I watched him in the Euros, I would have been saying, get that guy. You know, get that guy. He looked brilliant. But in the Premier League, with the pace and the physicality, I feel like his on-the-ball side of things is good. It's fine. But off the ball is severely lacking. He's not a clean tackler of the ball. And I don't feel like he knows how to polish the way he tackles based on where he is on the pitch. So it was a clumsy challenge. He's put the leg across, which is already problematic in the first place. He's then sort of allowed that contact. He hasn't pulled his leg away. And then he's pulled the shirt. At one point, he's waving away the appeal whilst with the other hand holding onto the shirt. And you think to yourself, like, all of this stuff that's going on in that one moment is just an indication that this is not your strength. Your strength is when you get the ball, you've got space to receive it, you get your head up and you can ping it with your left foot. That's your strength, you know? Your strength is almost like your unshakable belief in yourself, your ability to bounce back. He's got a lot of good things about him, don't get me wrong. But I feel like we've been let down too many times. And in the away game, again, red card. In this game, again, giving away a penalty, two against Man City. And I feel like Man City are that team that if you have got a weakness like that, boy, they're the ones to exploit it. And it was exploited. So we can move on to the Martinelli chance and the Gabriel red card. But how do you see the Xhaka penalty incident?
I'm with you, broski. On one hand, I know the two aren't the same. I don't understand how Odegaard's one isn't given. I do think to a slight degree, as guilty as Xhaka is, his I think it's a mixture of his mentality, not his mentality, how he's seen by the refs. The fact that, like you said, he's got a hand on him. He does look guilty, and Xhaka's always going to be there. Bernardo Silva's looking for it, but that's what I want my players to do. That's the dark arts. You see a chance, you're selling something. Xhaka bought it. It's a penalty. Like you said, he's got his hands on his shirt, and we see Xhaka do that outside the box. That is a free kick. It's like muscle memory. He's got a hold on the shirt. He sold it. I do think it's a harsh one because, like you said, whether it's a penalty or not, for me, it's a 30-second to a minute flashpoint across the whole 90 minutes. And, I watched the game twice. First time around, I'm proud of us. I think we did well. I think we played City at the right time. They were struggling fitness-wise. The last goal disappointed me watching it again, bro, because for me, as good as it was, we were committed, being down to 10 men and whatnot. I think you saw why City win the league. They had that hunger. If you look at the build-up to it, I believe it's Laporte versus Ben White, and it's Rob Holding actually next to Rodri. Now, Rodri's done a number on Holding. Holding is switched off. Ben White's lost his bat when the follow-up goes in. I do think we could have avoided that. I know we're down to 10 men and we're tired, but anytime Kevin De Bruyne can look up and find runners, you're in problems, and that's where we're at. In relation to the other decisions, I think it's harsh to give him one of the yellows, but again, it's one of them where I love Gabriel, but he's let the passion get on top of him. He's got a bit too excited. He's made it in it. It is what it is. How do you feel about it? I think his is stonewalled. I did think, though, looking back, I do think fans were quite harsh to Xhaka. Now, I always say this to you, and you say the same. I don't advocate this guy isn't getting blamed, so let's go and throw some blame on him. But I do think if the narratives were different and Xhaka got sent off and Gabriel gave the pen away, it would be a lot different. I feel they both played a part, but I actually feel with 11 versus 11 in that 90 minutes, I think at 11 men, we might get something. So I actually feel Gabriel's harmed us a bit more, but fundamentally, it's silliness what we did, man.
Yeah, and I have to admit, with Gabriel, I think it is a red card. The referee could have had a word with him for sure, but the first yellow, it's still slightly unclear to me. Some people are saying that he just went up to the referee and said something that was not out of the ordinary, wasn't abusive or anything like that.
I didn't get that either.
So to get a yellow for that is a joke. If you got the yellow for scuffing the penalty spot, fair enough. The second one, if that's against Arsenal, I'm saying that should be a red card. So I have to admit, when it's one of our players, that is definitely in that red card territory. If you get away with it, I'll say you're lucky. So on balance, it is what it is. But this is why you can't, in a way, ignore the refs totally, because that was a slightly subjective call. Yes, you'd be lucky to get away with it, but I don't think it was a case of the referee wouldn't have been getting loads of criticism had he not sent him off. But then on VAR, the Odegaard penalty, you kind of think to yourself, they're separate incidents. We can still not get that Odegaard penalty. It doesn't mean we need to give away the one that Xhaka gave away, right? So you do need to separate them. They're not linked, but what should link them is consistent treatment, and that's not what we got, and that's obviously very frustrating. And then we're talking about refereeing decisions, penalties and red cards, and then the other one was Martinelli's miss. And on that, this is open play. This should have no referee impact whatsoever, yet the referee still plays a part in that.
Facts. Good defending.
The referee was even telling giving the ball boy a talking to hurry up. I mean, when do referees do that? It just
he lost it, man. He lost it. Lost it. And again, for me, in general, broski, I feel if a manager messes up, I either get sacked, or if he does well, he gets praised. If players do well, they get appropriate. Even us content creators, if we're saying silly stuff, then we get the book thrown at us. I'm not saying, every week people are going to talk about referees, and I do think Arsenal fans go over the top, but I just find it very weird that the referee, and it's illegal to critique them, and it's not fair. Again, they're humans. If they decide that Xhaka is a loose cannon, that unconscious bias is going to play a part in their decision. You literally get banned for saying that about refs. So I don't get it. For me, it sounds harsh, but I just want Arsenal to get on with it, because we know refs are against us. Anyone that's played Sunday League, play on. And I feel regardless of that ref, we should have done a lot more against City.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, really.
If we do talk about the positives, let's take the result out and the refereeing performance out. We restricted Man City to 2 shots on target. And
it was a dream for a minute.
Brilliant performance. And not only that, when generally teams manage to restrict Man City, it's because they basically have zero ambition of posing any attacking threat themselves. But Arsenal were able to have a lot of attacking threat, significant attacking threat, and limit them. So that to me just displays that the plan worked perfectly. And we were a proper team out there. Even when we went down to 10 men, we didn't all of a sudden just panic. I know it got to our head, in that moment, and that's why we went down to 10 men. But after that, I thought the response was really good as well. So certainly a lot of positives. But then, when you lose a game like City, especially in the way that we lost it, you want a bounce back.
Immediate, yeah.
And then we got Nottingham Forest, which was the complete opposite. I'm talking about having attacking threat whilst limiting City to 2 shots on target. And then we go and play Forest. And I know it's a different team.
We limited
0
ourselves,
shots on
mate.
target against a championship side.
Well, yeah, let's get on to that. I mean, my opinions, it was terrible. Yeah, there was a shorthand, corona, injuries, all of these things played a part, but it's FA Cup. The minimum is turning up, and I just feel, well, it's not even I feel, we just didn't turn up. We didn't win our battles. We were just terrible all over the place, compounded in a bunch of things. And I think, I don't know what to think, really. It was just terrible. It was just terrible. What's your thoughts on that game? Everything was just terrible for me.
I was really annoyed by it, to be honest with you, bro. I was really, really annoyed. And I feel what I find interesting is that look at last year, Southampton, FA Cup, Arteta picks a really weakened side. We go out. He showed a disrespect to the competition, didn't prioritize it. This year, he has picked a team where there's not much more he could have done, really. There's some slight things.
Maybe Lacazette up front for Eddie, that's about it.
Yeah, or maybe even someone like Callum Chambers instead of Patino because of the fact that it's an away FA Cup tie against a physical championship side.
Well, Odegaard there, really.
Yeah, I was happy Patino was in there because I'm excited to see him play. But I think in hindsight, probably the wrong decision. But in any case, the lineup and the team selection is one thing. The other thing is what sort of desire and energy does a manager transmit to his players? And against Man City, I think we clearly saw what that team was all about that day and how desperate they were to win. I didn't see that desperation. Not from kickoff, not after 35 minutes when the manager made an example of a player, not after half-time when he had the ability to get into them, not when our current club captain came on in Lacazette towards the end of the game. And then right at the end of the game, the 5th example of how desperate are we to win is...
I know it's again.
There you go.
Mr. Kalashnikov
for Cedric, rather than, Mika Beerith, who a youngster that I know you
Mari, just throw someone on. That's got a chance. Yeah, that's exactly, what Wenger would have done. What did you make of that, man? Because I know there's Arsenal conspiracy theorists. They're saying, listen, he's trying to tell the board and those above that he needs players. I don't personally buy that one in particular. I just feel I'm a man out of options for that game. I don't know what I'm doing in that game. Where was you at with the Kalashnikov one?
I don't know. Maybe if it was not a transfer window, he wouldn't have played. Maybe it was just a case of, look, he's fit. If he goes and does something, then maybe some suitor comes to the door. I don't know. It was a really bizarre one. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how that increases your chances of winning the game. But, I guess my question is, given those 5 examples where I'm kind of saying that I'm not seeing any evidence that Arteta's desperate to win this trophy, what I find ironic is that it was this trophy that basically got him through the hard times, that got him a lot of credit in the bank. So what do you reckon? Do you think he takes it seriously, or do you think we can't read into the last 2 seasons of how we've exited?
I definitely agree with you. Last season, I think, Arteta was, he's still showing, but he showed last year a man that's still trying to get his bearings and deal with multiple competitions. I do think he disrespected it. Cedric left back with Martinelli, who wasn't getting a look. We didn't take it seriously. I have a bit more sympathy for him in this game, because what I would say is, one thing I'll give Arteta, he's definitely don't want to lose in a game like that. He definitely wouldn't want you to go out the first round of asking. I do think I haven't got sympathy for the lack of midfield options, because we knew this could be a thing in the summer, but isolated to that game, there was a bunch of injuries. So I do think he set the team up, given instead of, the only problems I would have, Odegaard. I think Patino should have played in the 10 or the 3 role where he could be guided through the game. I didn't understand Eddie Nketiah's inclusion. I think that was more putting his personal stuff ahead of the team, because I feel we didn't play against on Thursday. We could have played with Lacazette. I don't think Eddie could do much. I think Eddie got a bad rep on that game. Fans were a bit onto him, but he did have chances. So I didn't get it. Mainly the Odegaard and Eddie up front, beyond the obvious. Where are you at with the Tavares thing as well? Because I wanted it to happen, because Do I think Tavares was done a bit dirty? Of course it was harsh, but I just think fans done a lot. I feel you clearly, I don't know if he was convinced in starting you because of the how quickly he did it, but mentally you weren't there. And, you know, before I went on my live stream, I said, you know what, a couple of these players, you know, him and Lokonga, I like them, but I don't really trust them away from home. I still think they're dealing with the cultural effects of this country. And I think Tavares shown that. But where are you at with that sub? Because I feel Tierney showed in 2 minutes what we was lacking in that game, really, even though he didn't do much.
But, you know, with that sub, right, I think I see it different to most people, because anyone that's played 11 aside and you are managed by someone, you actually have a manager, you know, it's not just mates picking the teams. You don't want to be humiliated like that by your manager. You know, you're playing in front of your 10 other teammates and subs or whatever, and it's a bit humiliating for that to happen. Now, I would have dealt with it differently. And some people mistake this as soft, to say that I would have dealt with it differently. I don't think it's soft. I think having a conversation, like, you know, I almost think it's an easy way out to kind of be like, let's say, for example, I say to you tomorrow, I'm never doing this, I'm never doing a podcast with you again. And I just say, like, I'm done. That it's easy to send that I'm done sort of ruthless message than it is to look you in the eye and say, look, these are my problems with the way we're doing things. This is what I want to see from you. These are the changes that I want. That's actually the difficult conversation to have. As a manager, I think that is what management is about, to make people feel respected and appreciated, whilst also not compromising your beliefs in terms of what's best for the footballing
What
side.
you're trying to do,
right?
yeah.
So I would have said to Tavares, or firstly I would have said to Martinelli, look, go down injured for a minute, fake injury, I need to have a word with Tavares. And I just would have said to Tavares, look, I've seen numerous occasions you're giving the ball away. This is what you're doing wrong today. The next 5 minutes, this is what I want to see. If you don't do it, I'm going to bring you off. Okay? Now, that then arms him with the knowledge, at least, of what's going to happen, and he can then make a difference. It's not the same as when a manager's just shouting at a player from the sidelines. You don't get to put your arm around that shoulder and kind of say, look, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what I want to see. And I would have given him the opportunity to say, I would have given him the opportunity as well, even if he didn't want to do that, to say, look, I'm going to have to bring you off because you're having an awful game. I want you to go down injured so we can
save a bit of face.
Situation. Yeah, and save face for you. Because I don't want to humiliate you. So this is what I want you to do for me. Then it's up to the player whether he takes that sort of exit strategy or not. But what Arteta did, I think, isn't good for his confidence. And I don't think it takes into account that FA Cup football is very different. Yeah. And this is Tavares' he's very inexperienced in English football, never mind FA Cup football.
Professional football, because he doesn't have he hasn't played the most amount of games for Benfica. He's probably got closer to our first team than theirs historically. Still inexperienced.
Yeah, so we're saying that he's not an experienced professional footballer. He's got very minimal experience in English football, and he had 0 minutes of FA Cup football, especially against lower league opposition, especially away from home.
Shock, man.
There's a lot of factors there where I'd say, actually, you should have dealt with that with more tact. Now, a lot of people say, if you can't stand up to that level of pressure from Arteta, we don't want you anyway. And it's like, okay, fine. These are people that online, they want to be tough as nails. But I wonder how they would feel if that was them suffering that treatment, or, you know, if that was their son who was a footballer or something, or their daughter who was a footballer suffering that treatment. I just think there's better ways to go about it. So footballing wise, right decision, he needed to come off. How you do that is what's in question here. And what my worry is here is about the longevity that Mikel Arteta will have with this team. Because if you annoy enough people, there'll be a mutiny against you.
Everyone, yeah.
Yeah, people don't play for you. So how did you see it, bro?
I mean, I see it a bit differently from you. I agree with everything you said, and there's definitely many ways to stroke a cat, but I just feel there needs to be an element of ruthlessness. And I personally feel with Tavares, away from home, you've been a bit shocking. Like, you know, against United, there was defo another one on the road. There's been warning signs, and I think there was a time we lost and Arteta kept the same lineup and he retained faith in Tavares. So I've seen times of what you want to do. For me, I would say with Arteta, I don't think you was convinced in Tavares starting because you subbed him very early. I like that whole romance because I don't feel sometimes our young players learn the lessons. I do feel sometimes when you've been subbed that early and it's embarrassing, when you've made a mistake that's directly led to goal in Lokonga's case a few times. No one needs to tell you what you've done wrong. I feel sometimes when we win, I've seen these glaring errors and we've got away with it. I do think there needs to be a bit of a ruthless thing. I liked the fact that Tavares was angry. Obviously, people are going to get excited, but I did like the fact he's angry. I'd rather he cares. I do want his pride to be shot, to be hurt. But I genuinely think when he gets away from all of that, you know, he will think about, it's not about you, it's about the team. Was you doing what you were supposed to? Did you give, in that incident, did you give the team anything to help us win? You didn't do that. So I think it's a good look, in my opinion. Where I'm a bit different is because I don't know if you're going to do that if that was Tierney or if that is somebody a bit stronger in the team. You know, obviously a goalkeeper is not the best example, but would you take Ramsdale? I think Tavares is an easy one to do things like that with. But I just feel it's needed, man. Would you say?
Do you reckon he would have done it to Patino? And if he did it to Patino, what would you have said?
I would have, do you know what? If he'd done it to Patino, I would have thought, on one hand, young Charlie's confidence would have been shot. It would have annoyed me a bit. But in the grand scheme of things, I would have thought it was needed because we're struggling out there. Now, for Charlie, as you know, being out of his comfort zone in a game like that, you see what real football's like. It's not always going to be nice, little pretty football at the Emirates. So, yeah, man, I think it would have shot his confidence. But I think Charlie might have sat there and realised, you know, I'm 18. I'm out of my depth a bit. It is what it is. Where, you know, where I can see where people are going wrong, because people could sit there and say, well, what about Holding in that game? Cedric Suarez, he was poor in the first half. He managed to get even worse in the second. And I think above everything, that game highlighted that obviously the priority needed to be at the start of the season, finding a proper 11, finding a consistent 11. But football is a squad game. This is why when fans were saying, don't sign Odegaard, we've got Smith Rowe, and don't do this because we've got that. You can see in games like this, our depth isn't good enough. Of course, we've been dealt a shorthand. There's hella injuries and all of these things, but it's just not good enough, really, on the best of days. And for me, I think it's shown how ugly it can get if you do not bring in a midfielder. Or, you know, I want our players that are off at AFCON to go as far as they get, but a bit of a cynic in me wants El Nene and Partey to return home sooner than later because, you know, things could be wrapped up this week, in my opinion, man. It's scary.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I think that the conversation about Tavares and the management style and everything is an interesting one. I personally feel as though there would have been widespread condemnation of Arteta if he did that to Patino. Patino's more just visibly looks more like a youngster. And, you know, is slightly younger and has come through our Highland Academy. And I kind of feel like he'd get more protection than Tavares. And I almost kind of feel like it's a bit of a shame. I think if I was, you know, Tavares, I'd be thinking like, right, okay, you know, as in I don't get any allowances. You know, and I personally, given his lack of experience, I think he should be allowed a couple more allowances. But, you know, it is the way it is. I just hope he responds well. I hope it doesn't affect his confidence. And yeah, we see him, who knows, maybe even tomorrow.
Let me play devil's advocate. All right, cool. Let's just say Tavares wasn't subbed, yeah, you know, and he made a mistake and it led to a goal. And Arteta came out. I don't know why he would come out and say this, but he came out and said, I was thinking about subbing him. I kept him on. What would we be saying?
I'd be saying, you should have done it earlier. But that's why I'm not saying he shouldn't have subbed him. I'm saying sub him even in the 35th minute.
Save his face.
But save his face. As soon as you realise that I'm going to need to sub him, because you've obviously gone and told Tierney to get ready, at that point you should be saying to him, you've got 5 minutes.
You know what?
If you give the ball away in those 5 minutes, you're gone.
It's funny you said that because that was my first thing. I thought, all right, cool. Maybe he's been carrying something. I know there's illness in the camp. I'm not going to say he's got the C-bomb, but maybe he's suffering. It is that kind of the year. And he, you know, for me, Tavares, I was looking at him to provide an outlet on the left flank. So when he's not really attacking, I would have thought maybe there's something against him. So you're right on that. Maybe that's something Arteta needs to learn. Just play the game a bit more, be a bit street smart, keep things a bit in-house. And I feel maybe he should do that because I feel realistically our fans like to make stories out of nothing, especially when it's a delicate situation like Arteta. They're ready to hit you over the head with any stick and say that you've got poor man management and game management and all of these sort of things. I meant to ask you, moving away from the Forest game, obviously, you know, big week today. This week, you know, starting tomorrow, better yet. Yeah. We've got Liverpool in the Cup. We've got a 6-pointer against Spurs. Generally, where's your feelings at this week? And then how are you looking at tomorrow?
I really am curious as to what team Liverpool will put out tomorrow.
Sure.
Are they going to go strong or not? But you know what? I almost feel like that Man City game, yeah? We spoke about that earlier, and we said actually we saw really, really positive signs out of that, even in spite of defeat. I think what we'll see now against Liverpool over 2 legs, if they put a strong team out, is that now the new Arsenal in terms of how we fare in big games? Because off the back of 2 disappointing games, City and Forest. We now have a cup game where it's our only chance of a trophy. So I don't think there'll be any sort of lack of desire. We'll want it. We'll put a strong team out.
Cannot be.
So there'll be no excuses here. We need to go and perform here. So I think we'll get through. I think we'll get through to the final. That's just how I feel over 2 legs.
Please. I need this.
Because
I need someone.
a big thing is obviously who Liverpool have got missing. So that's a very, very big thing for me. Clearly, Arsenal got people missing as well, but I think we'll do it. I don't know about you. How do you feel?
Do you know what? For me, it's one of them. It's going to sound cliche. The first 5 or 10 minutes now, obviously for me, Mane or Salah, without them two, Minamino will turn into R9. They've got Jota, they've got Firmino who likes to disrespect us. They've got quality. Liverpool fans will always make a big song and dance about the Anfield atmosphere. So first thing is, I want any player who plays, and like you said, I assume it's probably our strongest team, closest to what played against them in the league. Remember how it felt, because you was in that game for a second, and then when Klopp turned on the pressure and the fans got onto you, it got nervy. Kind of the same logic with Source with Nottingham Forest, because we kind of struggle away from home. So again, the crowd is going to be key. You don't need to arrest your own mistakes. If you make a mistake, just carry on. There's going to be times you're under the caution. For me, this is, I know a lot of people say there's not time for rest and things like that, but these players, I need to see a performance, because the game's only going to get worse. If you return to Champions League, you've got to play on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Saturday. Us in the Europa League last year or the year before, we had to play on Thursday and then Sunday. So I don't think there's any excuses. I do want to go as potentially strong as we could. Admittedly, if I had to pick one game to win, I know it's going to sound bad saying this because it's the semi-finals and whatnot, but I just think you take 3 points off Spurs, you could try and eliminate them out of this top 4 race. So I need a performance today, man. I think Liverpool and Arsenal probably have better priorities, and I'm pretty sure both managers would love if this was over one leg. But yeah, I just want to, like one of the comments said, it's just about the performance. If it's a similar thing to the City game, then I can microscope what we could have done better, but everybody stood up to be counted. I don't want us to just, get scared when we hear the atmosphere or over-respect their players or be in it for 45 and then the second half we crumble. And half the things, I kind of want a perfect performance over 90 against Liverpool, if I'm honest with you, regardless of who's out there. I think you're on mute, broski.
Sorry about that.
No,
do you think we'll do it? Do you think we'll get to the final? Or do you think it'll be Liverpool?
I mean, I'm gonna be passionate and be Arsenal. I think it's our time to get to that final. But honestly, I don't know, man. It's the second leg that scares me, and I have to see how Arteta manages this squad, because we're down to our bare bones. We've got 3 games. It's probably naive to think the whole of the same side is going to play 3 times. And this is where I kind of wanted to ask you a bit earlier. When you look at our centre mid situation, now obviously I'm sure Mikel Arteta wouldn't have started Patino and Lokonga if he could. But do you have much sympathy? Because for me, I don't. When it comes to specifically central midfield, I don't, because we knew about this in the summer. We've been known about it.
It's not that we found out 2 days before that AFCON's going to happen. So
this is it.
It's really annoying. It's really annoying.
It's jarring, mate.
It's cost us a really important FA Cup campaign. And now I hope it doesn't cost us a League Cup. I mean, obviously, League Cup is not a major trophy. But the fact of the matter is, when you're in the semi-finals, of course you want to win it.
It's so close. You can kiss it. You might as well go through.
I'd rather have lost in the flipping first round that we were in the League Cup than at this stage, and still win the FA Cup. I'd rather it was switched in a way. But we need to go and get these midfield reinforcements. But what I would say is that, look, tomorrow, if Smith Rowe and Xhaka are back, then all of a sudden that becomes a very respectable midfield with Ødegaard, Lokonga, both all available as well. So those 4, and however you want to do it, Saka, Martinelli, Lacazette, all of a sudden you're looking at that team thinking that's a really good team again. So it all depends on those injuries. But if Smith Rowe and Xhaka aren't available, then yeah, you're like, damn, we're so light again. And that's where that conversation might need to come in about Callum Chambers potentially stepping into defensive midfield, or even Ben White maybe being pushed up a little bit.
I'll do the Ben White thing.
Back into defense. There's ways of going about it, but it's going to be tough. There was rumors Collagen actually in our last game could have played central midfield. So I'm with you, man. If it needed to be, what would would you go Chambers or White in midfield now that you said it? Because a part of me was saying Chambers. Then you said White. I thought, you know what, Ben White, we might get some progressive passes, slap Chambers in defense, just get away with it. But then again, Chambers and Holding against Liverpool, we've been there before. So I would leave White in defense. I would leave Ben White in defense, and I would because also what Ben White does really, really well is he carries the ball out of defence.
Yeah.
And generally as a central defender, you have the space to do that in front of you. Liverpool, obviously brilliant pressers, but in the middle of the park, I'm not sure Ben White would have as much space to do that. I think he I'd rather let him play his natural game, because I think that's a really, really good out. It's very underrated in terms of how Arsenal beat the press. And I think it's one of the key reasons we signed Ben White, because you see so often when players do that two-touch passing, angles get chopped up and eventually they have to go long. And if you have one player who has the confidence to say, I'm going to just fake the pass and go with the ball, it totally demolishes the
another
press.
dimension.
Yeah, totally demolishes the press. So he does that really well. And we need that against Liverpool, who are maybe the best pressers in the league. You know, they're very, very good at that. So, yeah, that's what I'd do.
And that's the thing. That's why I kind of look at our midfield, because even on the best of days, I see Ben White and Gabriel having to, in my opinion, overcompensate, because consistently there's not that midfielder who can turn and bring the other people into play. That's why you see them get frustrated and they try Hollywood passes. And I think that was actually highlighted against Nottingham Forest with our centre halves beyond the obvious. And I feel that's where a midfielder that can turn, I'm not saying Jorginho's the best example, but someone who wants the ball and who can turn, that's going to stop us getting to the next level, in my opinion, really and truly. And we don't look like we have any plans to mitigate against that, apart from probably Odegaard or Smith Rowe dropping into that 8 now. I'd rather Martin Odegaard do it. What would your lineup be, assuming, you know, people who we hear has a touch of being fit plays? We know we're going to be without a number of others, but we hear Xhaka, Smith Rowe, Tomiyasu, they have a chance. I don't know if Arteta's playing coy on things, but if I hear they've got a chance, then they start for me if they're about.